and they've got...
I think that's Carey's one, the Daily Express. That's all right.
I don't mind. Either way, I'm happy to go with it. Yes, so Holocaust Memorial and the Never Forget written in big at the top of the Daily Express. I don't think people have forgotten it, you know. I don't think people do forget it. It's mentioned quite a lot. I do think that it's not really about remembering it. It's more about how you remember it. And I think a lot of people are remembering it very wrongly, because now it's so misunderstood that what happened is being compared to just about every war.
Yeah.
And Israel-Gaza is being seen as some similarity or some representation of the Holocaust. Of course, with the Holocaust, and it wasn't just Jews, but it was, you know, gypsies and so on, and gay people. But largely there was a final solution that was intended to completely eradicate Jewish people. And it's weird, as a Jewish person, to know only decades ago there was an attempt to completely destroy an entire people. And it wasn't because they had hostages to give back and refused, and it wasn't because they started off an attack or because they demanded from any equivalent of river to the sea of another country. There was no demand. There was no way out. There was no escape. It was a hunting down of people across Europe to completely destroy them. And I think it should be remembered, but it's being very misremembered now.
And I guess, you know, 80 years is a long time, and it does seem to be slipping from, you know, this is something that was, you know, totemic in my childhood as, you know, the ultimate example of evil. But now looking at, you know, the demonstrations you get in the streets of London, looking at, you know, pro-Palestinian people on TikTok, looking at a lot of Britain's left-wing people and left-wing people in America, they seem to have completely forgotten the lessons. They want to seem to repeat it.
Well, I don't know about repeat it. 80 years is, as you say, a long time. For instance, the 80th anniversary of D-Day was commemorated, of course, a year ago, and I think by common consent there is a general understanding that that's probably it. That will be the last commemoration of that event, the last time that any veterans are expected to cross over to the beaches of Normandy. 80 years is an extraordinarily... It's a healthy lifespan, let alone one that goes back to something you can remember. I think there's another column about it on one of the other front pages saying that a few years ago they had 300 survivors, but this time it's down to sort of 50 or something visiting Auschwitz and so on. And I mean, remember is obviously, you know, it's a journalese word, never forget, but of course there is nobody around to remember the First World War anymore. I can remember when there were survivors and veterans of the First World War on Poppy Day. They've gone now. I remember very clearly the last one died. He was a neighbour of mine. He was in a rest home in Hove, the very last one to have served, These kind of milestones do move forward. Time is absolutely ruthless in this regard. As you know, as you get a bit older yourself, you start to realise it. And the ways in which things are commemorated do also change in that regard. And history is constantly subject to revisionism, as perhaps arguably it needs to be. We do constantly need to address what the Holocaust was. It wasn't simply a sequence of camps. It also included just lining people up and shooting them in the back of the head and kicking them into a ditch. It included the eradication of villages. It included people being expected to make their Jews available to the invading forces and so on. There were a lot of elements to it.
Which they did very enthusiastically.
They did,
When the Nazis reached France, they stated how many Jews they wanted rounded up, and the French said, we think we can double that, and do you know what they did?
Famously...
So that's what really it's all about. It's about all the people who joined in with it. It's about the machine that formed. And really, the problem is we want to put this down onto some kind of German mentality or something like this, but really it's about understanding human nature. That's what we should be doing. We should be understanding the systems that encourage the gruesome and, you know, hatred that allows people to rise to the top and run these things. And that's a better way of understanding who we are and what we're capable of.